And so let's start our morning with, or night at your place. Let's start with correcting our motivation with refuge and bodhicitta. But first of all, we'll take a few seconds to calm our mind, calm our body, and calm our mind. Make sure that your posture works for you and that it's comfortable, it's relaxed. With a relaxed body, we can also engender a relaxed state of mind. So just take a few seconds to make sure that you're comfortable, that your back is loosely straight. And we're going to turn our attention to the breathing process. Count a round of 21 breaths. Each breath is an anchor for a mind that can expand and settle. Relax in a quiescent state, but also very stable. For 21 breaths. And in correcting our motivation with refuge and bodhicitta, we can think that in our daily life, our mind gets fearful and anxious about the future, immediate future, but also long-term future. We feel anxious about what the future holds for us, particularly at the stage of things, the state of things in the world around us at the present, the future of the USA, our communities. There is no certainty and security. And in fact, this is the nature of our samsaric life. There's no sense of security and certainty about the future. And in fact, the very fact that we were born into this cyclic process of birth and death, controlled by karma and afflictions, ensures that we will continue to experience states in which we feel anxious and angry and attached. We behave unskillfully. And other people around us, also controlled by karma and afflictions, behave unskillfully in a destructive way, causing suffering to ourselves and to others. This is the very nature of our cyclic existence process. And so we can try to improve our surrounding, our conditions, but so long as we are caught in samsara, it will still continue to happen, to perpetuate. And the only long-term solution for that is to leave samsara, to become liberated, and to show the way to others, countless others caught up in the samsaric process. So to do so, we take refuge in the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. The Buddha is our teacher. The Dhamma that the Buddha embodied and the Sangha, the community of teachers and practitioners, not only the present, but also in the past, that communicate the Buddha's teachings to us through living examples. But also in our heart, we know that we can become Buddhas. We can make our mind perfect. We can be the guide for others. So the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha that we will become in the future will be our ultimate refuge. So with a sense of reliance, we can say the verse for refuge in bodhicitta. Go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and Supreme Assembly. By the accumulations that gathered through generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and Supreme Assembly. I go for refuge, by the accumulations that gathered through generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and Supreme Assembly. By the accumulations that gathered through generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. All right, let's start. And could you please make me a co-host so that I can share some stuff on the screen? Cool, thank you very much. All right, and so we had a break from this short series of teachings. We were looking at the stages of subduing the mind, knowing our minds, avoiding encounters with objects that fuel our afflictions, taking up ethics, applying local antidotes to the afflictions, cultivating concentration, and developing wisdom as part of the Buddha's teachings in one verse. Commit non-negative action, perform perfect virtuous action, subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teachings of the Buddha. And I think that we go to applying local antidotes to the afflictions, and I was talking and talking and talking, and we ran out of time. And so what I thought of doing today was to finish up the section of dealing with our afflictive states of mind, and then looking a little bit at developing shamatha and vipassana, or kamabading, special insight, and then to wrap it up with looking at how we apply it to our everyday practice or approach practice that should happen for the rest of our life. Does it sound okay? Ready to go? Cool. All right. And so, do you hear, by the way, the drums from the outside? No, that's good. All right. And so, we spoke of antidotes to the afflictions. We spoke of antidotes to attachment. We spoke of antidotes to anger. I don't think that we spoke about antidotes to ignorance, but basically, no, I wanted to say that it's pretty simple, but it's not that simple, of course, to antidote ignorance. Ignorance, in a general sense, there are two types of ignorance. There's one that just doesn't know, that does not understand. That's one type of ignorance. And another one that is completely distorting reality, misconstruing reality. There is a misrepresentation that ignorance comes up with, which is totally not in line with reality. And it works on different levels. Now, we often speak of ignorance, of grasping at the self, grasping at inherent existence, grasping at true existence. That's the deepest level of ignorance. But just as well, we can look at other types of distortions that we have, like, for example, trusting things that will remain as they are, that will be fixed, that will stable, that will give us a sense of security. And this is what we're looking for in samsara, right? We get into a relationship, for example, in trusting that the person that we got married to, our partner, will always stay as they are. They will never change. They will always give us a sense of security and happiness and so forth. And when we find out bit by bit that they do change and change is inevitable, we become fearful, we become angry, we become disappointed and so forth. So there's that sense of ignorance that really wants things to be fixed, to be stable, whereas most things that we encounter are in the nature of change. And so the way to remedy ignorance is to develop wisdom that understands not only the subtle way that things exist, in that they have no inherent existence, but also to understand how close things exist. Now, we often distort reality, having four types of erroneous apprehensions, taking impermanent things to be permanent, but also taking something that is in the nature of suffering to be pleasurable. Like, for example, we don't see our body. This very body that we have is pervasive suffering of conditionality, the third type of suffering that the Buddha spoke of. The Buddha said that once we are born into a body such as this, with having been controlled by karma, having been controlled by afflictions, it is guaranteed that we will have suffering. There's no way to avoid it. We get sick, we get old, we die. We are always looking for something, something beyond the horizon that will give us happiness and well-being. The next best thing, the next, the new thing. We are always looking for something. We have to be separated again and again from things that give us pleasure. We encounter again and again things that cause us displeasure. It's based on a body such as this. The moment that we have this body, it is guaranteed that we will have attachment, anger, ignorance, jealousy, pride, actions that will compound and continue the suffering that we experience in this life, but also in future lifetimes. And yet, we expect that this body will give us pleasure. There will be an ocean of pleasure for us to experience. And of course, we do experience pleasure with our body. But also, we think that there is something wonderful in the body. Actually, when we get into an intimate relationship and we fall in love with another person, often, the physical aspect is part of it, right? It's difficult to fall in love with another person without, initially, without also finding the other person attractive, wanting to be in a relationship with that person. No, of course, no, not all relationships are based only on physicality, on appearance, but that's part and parcel of our relationship. And we have that idea that the body of another person is wonderful. It gives us ultimate happiness and enjoyment, and yet it's still suffering of change. Pervasive suffering of conditionality. Still within that, the mechanism of disintegration and breaking down, and things entering the body, things leaving the body, impurities and so forth. This is part and parcel of the whole body, and yet we see only the external package. Now, this is wonderful. It will give us happiness and enjoyment. So it's with respect to ourselves, but also with respect to others. And so taking what is not pleasurable, taking something which is in the nature of suffering to be absolutely amazing, is another type of distortion. Taking what is impure to be clean and pure, like our body, we clean our body, we pamper the body, we floss, we brush our teeth and so forth every day. Having that idea that we can make the body clean, it's impossible. That we can think of what's going on inside our body, on the skin, things that are coming into the body, exiting the body. From different perspectives, we can come to see how there's so many impurities within the body. And we do that in order to break down that idea that things which are unclean by nature are clean and pristine. So there are different types of ignorance. And the way to deal with ignorance, the way to undo ignorance, is to develop wisdom. And so there's wisdom that we develop with respect to the conventional world, like, for example, wisdom that understand impermanence, wisdom that understands suffering, wisdom that understands uncleanliness, and then wisdom with respect to the ultimate, the absence, the lack of inherent existence. So wisdom, cultivating wisdom of the conventional world, realization of impermanence, understanding the four truths, etc. And wisdom of the profound, wisdom of selflessness. The way to, by the way, the way to develop wisdom of the profound, which also I think related to the conventional world, is developing the wisdom of dependent arising, realizing dependent origination, realizing that impermanent phenomena depend upon cause and conditions. That phenomena in general depend upon parts. That phenomena depend upon a mind seeing them in a particular way, seeing them as if they are external realities, but are not external realities. Understanding that a mind labels and imputes and names things, that they do not exist in and of themselves in that objective sense. So that's about antidoting wisdom. And antidoting ignorance, using wisdom to antidote ignorance. But then in the way that we are mostly dealing with disturbing emotions, with afflictions, trying to remedy them, to antidote them, we mainly deal with the objects, trying to change a perspective about the objects that the mind deals with and make sure that we develop correct attention to those objects. So, for example, with attachment, we tend to see something as being wholly wonderful in and of itself, out there, designed to give us happiness, as if our happiness is inbuilt within the object of our attachment. With anger, we think, no, we perceive a certain thing that causes suffering or pain or anxiety and so forth. And we see them as being completely not in agreement with us, repulsive. Um, and so, that thing that we hate, that we become angry with, has only negative qualities, and we don't see any positive quality. And so the antidote that we apply to anger and attachment and ignorance and pride and jealousy and so forth often deal with changing our perspective of the object. If we see only negative qualities, we try to see positive qualities in the object. If we see it as being wholly wonderful with attachment, and we thereby pursue it, we try to become mindful of impermanence, of unattractive aspects of the object, of how it can break down, how it can cause us unhappiness. So there are also things which are not that wonderful or attractive in the object. So we change our perspective of the object. But there is another way of dealing with afflictive states of mind, which is not focusing on the object, it's focusing on the mind itself. These techniques are common in Mahamudra, Dzogchen teachings, but also when you look at Shantideva's text, Shantideva's Guide to Bodhisattva Way of Life, in chapter 4, he said, he spoke about the way that we deal with afflictions. If these afflictions do not abide within objects, not within the collection of sense powers, between the two nor elsewhere, then where do they abide and how do they harm all migrating beings? They are like illusion. Thus, I should dispel the fear within my heart and strive for the sake of wisdom. For no meaning, why am I harmed in hell and so forth? And so, what Shantideva says here very succinctly, I think, is that um, when we have a disturbing emotion operating in our mind, it paints our way of viewing reality in a very concrete way. When we become angry with another person, it seems that our anger is part of that person. It's hard to separate between the object of anger and anger itself. It seems almost that anger is almost like an attribute of that person. How can you not get angry with that person? How can you not hate them? How do you not find them so disagreeable? Now, particularly in modern politics, we had a brief conversation before that. How can disliking Trump, for example, not be part of who he is as a package? And so also afflictive emotions, anger, attachment, and so forth, they become in a mind like those afflictive emotions, which are like inherent within us, that cannot change. Because whenever we encounter the object of that affliction, they will always arise. And so rather than trying to deal with the object, here Chandradeva says you can also look at the mind itself and see whether you can find anger existing in such a concrete, stable, inherent way. Like, for example, when we develop anger or a sense of repulsion, um, flinching from people like Trump and so forth, is it part of, no, is it an attribute of that person? Is the mind of anger, of finding that person repulsiveness, does it rest in the object itself? It's not in the person itself, it's in our mind, right? Where is it in our own mind? Can we find it within, for example, if it's within ourselves, can we find it first of all in the sense organs that we have or in a mental capacity? Is it found within the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the tactile senses that we have in our body? Is there a space between Trump and a body in which anger resides? Can we find it anywhere? Of course, it is within our mind. No, we can feel it, we can experience that. But actually, when you try to really pin it down and see whether you can find a whole lump of something that exists in and of itself as a bundle of uncomfortable sensation, you cannot find it like that. And of course, we experience that. But also, when you look for the disturbing emotions, for afflictions, you cannot find them as an objectively existing reality. And sometimes it's a good I think, good meditation exercise to do when our mind is full of fear, is full of anger, is full of anxiety with respect to the future, is full of hopes and expectations of how we would want the world to be, because it seems that they are really part and parcel of who we are. They are the things that define who we are as persons. We completely identify with anger, with attachment, and so forth. And so when you allow your mind, when you check the nature of those afflictions, and you see that also there are also this fuzzy reality that cannot be pinned down in a very concrete way, they lose the power. And it doesn't happen in a magical way. No, it's not that one-off meditation will completely remove our fear, anxiety, repulsion, and so forth. But it does help over time to engender a state of mind that is more relaxed, that is more at ease. It takes years maybe to do that, but I think that it's still a way of dealing with our afflictive states of mind, not only looking at the object, but also looking at our own mind and trying to find space. Maybe what we can do now for maybe 2 or 3 minutes is try to do it together in a really quick meditation to see how we feel, for example, about the upcoming election. Trying to find fear in our mind, to see whether it is in the object, whether it is in our body, whether it is in the space in between. Where does fear exist? Do you want to do that? All right. So just let's take a few seconds just to calm our mind and to calm our body. And then in thinking of the upcoming elections, I assume that many of you are concerned about Trump being voted in, but some people might just as well be concerned that Kamala Harris would be voted in. So whatever might be your political preference or the future that you fear, look at fear or anger. And first of all, sense how it feels within your body. Do you feel restless? Is your chest tight? And then if you think of Trump or Kamala Harris, whatever might be your preference, does your fear or anger rely upon them? In that, is it an emotion that is resting on those people? Can it be found in a physical way as a property of these people? And what about our senses? When we watch the television, we see the image, we hear the voice. So does fear exist within my eyesight, my eyes, arising whenever I see Trump on telly? Does it exist within my ears whenever I hear his voice? And although fear does manifest in a very physical way, causing constriction in a chest or sometimes a breathing process, agitation in the body, can it be found in any organ of the body? And what about our mind? When we experience fear or anger, we can turn our attention to the mind. And first of all, recognize that it knows, that it cognizes something. And there's also an appearance that dawns to the mind of Trump or Harris or someone else. And we experience anger or fear through cognition and clarity. But is there any anger or fear that exists in our mind inherently, without being dependent on an appearance and cognition? And so fear has its texture, its feelings, its sensation. We can become aware of how we cognize something through our own experience, the experience of the mind. And see it just as a process of cognition and clarity. that changes from moment to moment, like waves in the ocean. And it is not inherent to our mind. There are moments in which fear and anger are not present. They are not eternal. They are not permanent. And they can change. And so just to finish off this quick and short meditation exercise, we can rest for 1 minute on the open awareness of fear, anger, with knowing that they're just clarity and cognition, clarity and knowledge. That change from moment to moment in our mind. All right. So that was a really quick meditation drill. I think that I had a conversation with a friend of mine a few years ago that said that when people feel anxiety, when they're very anxious and so forth, sometimes it's not really helpful to focus on the body and recognize sensations and so forth. For some people, it even creates a greater degree of discomfort. So if that what happens to you, of course, um, we can find ways to we can find other methods and techniques to work with anger. So if it makes you anger or fear and so forth. So if it doesn't work for you, that's completely okay. But if you do find the space also to look at the mind, particularly when those disturbing emotions operate, and try to see how they create this appearance for us, as if there's this emotion that exists in and of itself, we completely identify with it, but also it fuses with the object of the affliction into this bundle that is indivisible. It's helpful to look at the mind itself, to look at just this quality of knowing, which is always present in our mind. Not only with knowing as wisdom, but also knowing with our afflictive states of mind. Anger knows something, although the knowledge is distorted. It knows something in the sense that it cognizes something. It's only cognition through something that appears to the mind, through that clarity. In our body, in our mind, it feels, we build those big stories. They do have a big emotional toll on us, but really when you look at what they're made of, they're just made of knowing something, cognition, and clarity. So I think that it takes a lot of time, months and years, to look at our own mind and to see how it works and not trust the way that our mind reacts. In a sense, I try to raise doubts and questions. Is reality as concrete, stable, enduring, unchanging as it feels now within my mind? My mind is just clarity and cognition, not more than that. So how does it feel? Does it feel a bit unclear? It's difficult, isn't it?
It makes a lot of sense in terms of, so when in the last year when I would do loving kindness meditation, you're going through somebody's negative, like he just always arises. It's serious. And I was like, okay, I have to work with this. And I spent months and months summoning him loving kindness. And it was not, I couldn't send it like, I need you to change or I need you to drop out. Right. It had to be just understanding that, if we all have made this agreement that we want to help all sentient beings, he is one of them. And he triggers me, and I realize in terms of mind, he's living rent. I'm letting him live rent free in my head. That's what what it is. And so someone asked me who was not a Buddhist and said, well, so do you think by sending him this that you're making him different? I said, it's not about him. It's about me and stuff. So
I think that within this, meditation techniques that Shantideva presents here, he says that when we have emotions, disturbing emotions, afflictions that operate in our mind, it seems as if they're part and parcel of who we are. Not only that, they're also completely mixed up with the object of those afflictions. How can you not have anger with Trump or with Kamala Harris or with this person or that person? How can you not get mad at them? So since all kind of this emotion seems to be completely fused with who we are, but also who the other person is. And so Shantideva says here that actually when you look at that emotion, fear or anger, and you try to find where it is and what is it, it's just a cognitive process that operates in our mind, which is based on every moment of cognition. So in our daily meditation practice, we can also just sit for a few minutes and just observe the mind and see that in every moment of the mind, there is knowing of something, cognizing something. It doesn't have to be very clear. It doesn't have to be knowing something in a precise way, but there's still knowing, just knowing. This is what consciousness is. It is just cognition, but also it cognizes something through whatever appears to the mind. No clarity or this appearance. Clarity and appearance are interchangeable, you could say. So clarity and appearance are the things that help the mind to know. So anger is just made of that. There's a cognitive process that occurs. Now it knows something, it cognizes something, and there's something that appears to the mind. It is not more than that. It's not in the object itself. It's not in Trump. It's not within our body. It is just a cognitive process. And our mind is not, no, those, the cognitive process is not inherent within our mind in a sense that it is not, no, anger is not inherent to our mind. It is just a cognitive process. And attachment and jealousy and so forth are not inherent. They're just a cognitive process. And therefore, we can do something in our mind in order to reduce that. And we can also do something in our mind in order to elicit, to develop other cognitive processes. So that's one way of dealing with the afflictions or bringing down the power of afflictive states of mind. It doesn't, I think that if we try to do a one-off meditation or a week-long meditation, it might carry some power, but not enough. I think that it's something that we need to do every day for many months and years to, when we engage with a certain object that elicits a disturbing emotion, then make a switch, look inwardly rather than outwardly, and look at the mind itself and remind ourselves that it is a cognitive process that feels in a certain way, but it is not an inbuilt, inherent, automatic, uncontrolled or unchangeable state of mind. All right, and so observing the afflictions is also, I think, something that over time can help with dismantling or bringing the power of our afflictive states of mind. And so in the process of in the stages of subduing the mind, we spoke of knowing our minds. And what we did now in turning our attention to the mind itself is also part of knowing the mind, how our mind works. But we also spoke about it as the initial step that we can take in order to subdue our mind, just know how it works better, then avoiding encounters with objects, or at least reduce our engagement with things that we know that are destructive for our mind. Then it gives us more space to take up ethical discipline, to decide to avoid certain actions, physical, verbal, mental actions, to not perform, commit non-negative action, perform perfect virtuous actions. We have more space to do that. And then together with that, we apply local antidotes to the affliction. So we spoke of antidotes to anger, antidote to attachment, and antidote to ignorance, mainly dealing with the objects, but also an antidote, which is looking at the mind itself, rather than looking at the object, looking at the subject, the mind itself. But then the next step is cultivating the concentration of shamatha. And so shamatha, or in English, kamapading, is essentially developing a concentration in which the mind is in control. All of us have had meditation exercises and drills in which we've found that within a few seconds or a minute or two, our mind wanders off to another thing. And we completely forget what we wanted to do in our meditation. Have you had that happening in your meditation? Happens to me like, second or third second of sitting into a meditation session. And so shamatha is, so currently our mind is out of control. We not only it's out of control, we are slaves, we're servants of the mind. We do what the mind tells us because we have no control. So developing the concentration of shamatha is trying to reverse that process. Rather than the mind controlling us, is we're going to control the mind, and we do that with concentration. And so it is a concentration in which the mind becomes at will. And in the process of developing shamatha, we are working with two obstacles, two hindrances to this super amazing concentration. So one of them is that excitation that our minds that our minds go through. In excitation can be of objects of attachment, so objects of anger. When I become a little bit bored in my meditation, my default mechanism is to start thinking of things that cause me pleasure and to think of how wonderful it would be if I get it, foods and chocolates and holidays and meeting people that I like and so forth. And so distraction, excitation is an obstacle for single-pointed concentration. But also another obstacle is mental sinking, in which our mind becomes lethargic, it becomes sleepy, we lose the clarity of the object, and then we fall asleep. So in order to develop a single-pointed concentration, we need to constantly deal with our mind, to apply antidotes to excitation, but also antidote to laxity. But also the process of developing concentration can be painful. If you sit for long meditation sessions that takes half an hour, 2 hours, your body starts aching. Now, when I started sitting in meditation sessions when in my mid-20s, I found it so difficult to sit for more than half an hour or an hour. I had pains in my ankles, in my knees, in my back, and so forth. Now my endurance has improved. I can sit for 2 hours, but still, after 2 hours, it's not comfortable. If we do a few meditation sessions a day, it's very uncomfortable. And so with the development of concentration of shamatha, our body and mind get so used to the process of meditation, in which they become completely amendable to improving concentration. We call that in Buddhist language, they become pliant, serviceable for meditation. No longer it is not uncomfortable, it's actually quite pleasurable. It becomes quite pleasurable to the degree where it is that oozing sense of well-being that, first of all, takes over the body, and then it also permeates the mind. And I remember that in my early days of meditation, there were a few individual meditation sessions in which you felt that everything works perfectly in that meditation. It was like kind of my mind was expanding, and there was that great sense of relaxation that was, first of all, going through the body. It's like ecstasy that was going through the body. And then also the mind becomes just vast and quiescent. And then I was trying to replicate this sensation, or this experience, and it's impossible. For me, it's, in the few times that I've experienced that in the last 20 odd years, I think that maybe this is the type of experience that you get when you have a 10 karma binding, that overwhelming physical and mental well-being. Sometimes it is described as bliss that starts with the body and goes into the mind. When it happens, when your body and mind are completely serviceable and your mind becomes at will, and you experience that extremely strong sense of physical and mental well-being, this is when you actually attain karma abiding. But of course, it's a gradual process, and we start from where we are now. And when we start with developing the concentration of shamatha, it's good to start with short sessions. Rather than aiming at developing concentration over 1 hour of meditation, we start in a humble way. Do 1 minute of meditation, 2 minutes of meditation, and do many of them as we can. It doesn't have to be also sitting in a formal meditation on a cushion. You sit in a bus. You walk in the street. You walk in the street, you can observe your breath, and try to develop that single point in concentration. Now, I think that one trap for developing concentration is thinking that whenever a thought occurs, we are no longer concentrating. But it's impossible to prevent thoughts from arising. I mean, we know that. All of us have done some meditations. We have thoughts, conceptions that constantly operate within our mind. And so you stay focused on a certain thing. And it's easy to begin with meditating on the breath. We are all familiar with the breath. Actually, we're not familiar with the breath. We're breathing. We know that we're breathing, but often we don't pay attention to the breath. So one of the most basic meditation practices that we take up in Buddhism at the beginning is trying to focus on the breath. At the beginning, it can feel a little bit laborious because we're not used to. So it even might cause us to try to change the way that you breathe. But if you let your body just relax, not change the way that you breathe, but just become aware of it, the rising and falling of our chest or abdomen, the sensation of air coming in and out, just in a simple way. We don't have to be too intellectual about it. And we do it for 1 minute, we do it for 2 minutes, we do it in counting rounds of either 10 breaths or 21 breaths. And we do it 3 times over, or 1 time over, or 2 times over. Over time, we get used to it. But also we get used to noticing that a thought is about to arise. A thought is arising and it's operating, but we're still breathing. We still focus on the breath. Just the mere arisal of a thought doesn't mean that we are already distracted, that we are following or chasing after that thought. We can let it be, let it arise, but still focus on the breath. And so over time, when we do it, our mind becomes more settled. And of course, there are good days and there are bad days. There are days in which there are sessions in which it's working well, sessions in which our mind is completely scattered. We become scattered brain. And so we do it over time. And as our mind becomes more concentrated, our afflictions become smaller and smaller, to the point in which shamatha itself has the ability, with that concentration which the mind is in control, it has the ability to completely suppress afflictive states of mind temporarily when we are in that calm abiding shamatha process. Afflictions cannot arise because our mind is in control, focused on what the mind should be doing. Afflictions will not take over. But it's only a temporary state because we haven't completely eliminated the afflictions. But developing concentration is magnificent tool that helps us with dealing with the afflictions. And so going back to the stage of subduing the mind, cultivating concentration of shamatha, definitely achieving shamatha is useful, but also any stage along the way in which our concentration becomes better and better. Sorry, that's better. No. Yeah. So any stage along the way already makes our ability to deal with afflictive states of mind better. Does it make sense to you? How are you doing with shamatha focusing on the breath? Are you doing or just trying to focus on your breath at the beginning of your meditation session or the middle? Do you do those meditations from time to time?
Yeah, it typically what I'll do is do it for a little bit, and then I'll get into the Michael, what's the term? The analytic
Yeah, the actual
meditations.
meditation session, the
So,
actual topic.
but so there was something, I don't know what it was about the thing that you just said about, I mean, I understand that the thoughts arise, we cannot stop them, that I get it. But the way that you said it about that you can have the thought and still just be focusing on the breath. It's always kind of been, because they talk you through it and say, okay, you have a thought and it's okay, you just kind of let it go, or whatever. But that's what you were saying, is actually as long as I continue to just keep focusing on that, the thoughts, then it's not an either or. I guess I've been
Because
trying to
I
make
think
it. I mean, I know I can't turn this off. So
I think that one of the traps that we have for the development of concentration is thinking that any thought that arises, it means that we're not concentrated. And therefore, our shamatha meditation failed. Whereas it's impossible to stop our thoughts. So we can develop shamatha when a mind doesn't get carried away by thoughts. They still arise, and over time, the waves of thoughts become smaller and smaller. So we can still focus on what we need to focus. We can still focus on the breath. We can still focus on the mind. We can still focus on an image of the Buddha. And we know that a thought is popping. And some of the details are clear, but we are not forgetting the object. We're not chasing the thought and making a big story out of it. And if we do that, then we find that those thoughts slowly dissipate or quickly dissipate. I mean, it happens for me sometimes in my meditation where a thought arises, it arises in a very powerful way, and still I'm focusing on the object, and then all the details all of a sudden become, in that thought become completely fuzzy, and I don't even remember what the thought was about. All right, and so looking at cultivating the concentration of shamatha, I'll go back to this. So shamatha, the description that I wrote, is a single point in concentration in which the mind is at will, capable of remaining on the object, I should say. Sorry. What did I do? What did I do? All right, I'm here. Remaining on the object of meditation. I'm a little bit obsessive with that. All right, remaining on the object of meditation for as long as one wishes without being distracted and without laxity. It is qualified by an incredible physical and mental well-being, which comes from the body and mind being totally amendable or being made amendable to remaining in this meditative process without any difficulty. And so that's a concentration of shamatha. And vipassana, wisdom, which is the next step in subduing the mind, is an analytical wisdom that analyzes and investigates an object which the mind is placed on within the state of shamatha. And so this is a significant point. To develop the wisdom of special insight of vipassana, we need to start with developing concentration, the concentration of shamatha. Vipassana is based on shamatha. We can develop wisdom without much concentration, but the efficacy, the potential of that wisdom would be quite small. If a mind is not constantly chasing after thoughts, rumination, distraction, and so forth, it can stay focused and stable, wisdom will become penetrative wisdom, vipassana, special insight. And so to completely eliminate our afflictive states of mind, we need shamatha and we need vipassana. Without developing a single point in concentration in which the mind is in control, our wisdom will never be enough, will never be strong enough to completely eliminate the afflictions. And so we want to combine them together. Currently, it might seem to be a little bit confusing in that single point in concentration is a concentration in which the mind is just resting upon one object of meditation. Whereas wisdom is an analytical faculty that weighs things, scrutinizes, checks out different things, uses argumentation and reasons and so forth. So it seems that these two do not live together, single pointed concentration and analysis. But actually they can live together. You can still be focused on a particular object of meditation and still engage the mind within that object, looking at its different aspects, features, characteristics, reasons, and so forth, just related to this topic without being distracted or without losing clarity with respect to that object. When they still work together in a way that they don't interfere with each other, so analysis does not hinder your concentration, and your concentration does not prevent you from still being able to scrutinize the object of meditation. Not only when they do not interrupt each other, they actually enhance each other. So the more focused you are with your concentration, the better your ability to analyze become. The more analysis you do of that object, the better focused and concentrated you are on that object when they live in that mutual support. And you also have that amazing sense of physical and mental well-being that arises out of your body and mind being completely made amenable to that process. Bang, you have attained vipassana. So it's a process. And vipassana, which is supported on shamatha, is crucial for eliminating our afflictive states of mind. So we spoke of subduing our mind thoroughly. The meaning of subduing our mind thoroughly is to completely eliminate our afflictions. Vipassana and shamatha are absolutely necessary for that. And so let's go back to that. It is an analytical wisdom that analyzes and investigates an object within which the mind is placed on within the state of shamatha. It is also qualified by physical and mental well-being that arises from the analytical process that is based on shamatha. Now, these two descriptions are not the precise definition, but I think that they still give you a good understanding of what shamatha, concentration of single-pointed concentration of calm abiding, and vipassana, the special wisdom, highest wisdom is. Right? So concentration and wisdom are necessary for eliminating our afflictive states of mind, for subduing our mind thoroughly. How are we doing so far? Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, Michael.
Um, I was asking Venerable Dundrup this question the other day, and I said we always focus about meditation with sitting, yet there's standing, there's walking, there's I find myself in a car a lot. I drive about 100 miles a day, usually from somewhere between 20 and 40 minutes at a time, sometimes a little longer, sometimes longer. And I find that to be really meditative. And in fact, today I was driving along and don't even know what I was thinking about, but some cello music came on and three pieces in a row came on. And I found myself feeling a lot of pain and anguish. And at first I thought it was my pain and anguish. But then as I kind of dove into it, it really wasn't about me. And so my question is about what you just had up on the screen, and that in both the Vipassana and the other form, it talked about a sense of mental well-being. And yet, so I kind of hear mental well-being as saying, oh, I must be feeling good and wonderful and all fuzzy and nice inside. And yet I wasn't feeling nice inside, but I felt like it was right where I needed to be. I, I would have, I mean, if you asked me, I would say, oh, absolutely, that was a sense of mental well-being.
Yeah. I think that this sense of mental well-being is not necessarily kind of mental health, or not feeling anguish. It's about everything working well for us now, with a strong sense of resilience. It's like maybe this is what we should be doing. This is where I should be at the moment. I do not need to change it. I mean, I'm trying to describe something that I haven't attained, so my capacity is really limited, but when I think of this physical and mental well-being, and I try to think about it in relation to teachers that I know, Siddha Rinpoche and His Holiness the Dalai Lama, or what have you. I think that they do go through states in which the mind is concerned about something. It is overpowered by compassion that feels really concerned about the welfare of others, particularly when others are going through great perils, through great sense of pain. So the mind, of course, is affected by it, but there's also the sense of strength in the mind, in the body, in the mind, that doesn't let the mind and the body um, become completely, no, to completely fall apart. But also, I think that the process that you describe, like for example, you can do those meditation while walking or while driving or while sitting in the bus and while taking a walk and sitting on a bench in the park or what have you. And so even when you're driving, I think that you can perform meditation on shamatha while driving, in a sense that, it's the characteristics are similar to meditation on shamatha. You can focus on the breath. You can focus on your mind itself, cognition and clarity, and you're still driving and cognizant of whatever appears, whatever is around you. Of course, we don't want to close our eyes when we're doing driving, and to count a round of 21 breath while our eyes are closed. But we can do it. I think over time you find out that you can do it while focusing on the mind. And then there are times in which certain emotions arise, or certain thoughts arise, whatever occurs to you during the day, whatever is happening in America, whatever is happening somewhere else around the world. And so it can arise in the mind. And then you can develop compassion, you can be concerned about it, you can develop patience, you can develop other positive states of mind. And the mind being in that concentrated space and also utilizing our wisdom becomes one big deal of, one big puzzle of all of it. Thank you. A friend of mine, Iki, is bringing breakfast.
Hello.
Da 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 da. Thank you. You can leave it here. Thank you. Ta-da.
And Venerable, one more thing that kind of goes along with that for me anyway, is that and what my favorite Lojong saying is always meditate on that which provokes.
Yeah.
And you kind of said earlier, it's like, there was a time when it still happens, right? But every time I meditated on that which provoked, it was always, what's wrong with that person?
Yeah.
Right? And then gradually I get away from that, but then it's what's wrong with me? Right? Okay, where is this in me? And then not me in general, but now where am I feeling it? Okay, so what's wrong? So why am I feeling it in this arm? What is it about this part? And then gradually kind of demystifying that so that occasionally over time it becomes, oh, it is me, but it's not my heart, it's not my arm, it's not my leg, it's not even some collection of neurons in my head, right? I mostly I can get it down to there, and then rarely I can get it beyond that.
I think that that's a meditative process that is similar, or maybe exactly the same, the one that Shantideva spoke of. Where is it? Where is that emotion when you try to look for it? Is it in the object? Is it within the body? Is it within the neurons? Can I find it anyway? Is it separate from just a mere cognition and clarity? I think that over times it has the ability to diffuse the power of the afflictive emotions. Then they will not go away completely without shamatha and vipassana, but they are a crucial part of the process.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And so then I wanted to wrap up, and maybe after that we can have, we can still have some time for a couple of questions or discussions. But I wanted to wrap up with a question of what do I do? What do I practice now? Because I spoke all along about this process by which you start with coming to know your mind better, then staying away from objects that stir afflictive states of mind, developing antidotes to afflictive, taking up ethics, developing antidotes, developing concentration and wisdom. It is presented as a serial graduated process. So is it the case that it always have to be gradual, in that only when I graduate, for example, for my ethical discipline, can I look at applying antidotes? And only after I apply an antidote can I move on to antidotes to the afflictions, can I move on to developing shamatha. And only after develop shamatha can I move on to developing wisdom. Is it this gradual process, or can we do it in a different, in an organic way, so to speak? So I think that kind of when we look at the process of subduing the mind in terms of a practice, then the first question is the process of taming my mind necessarily sequential? I think that it is sequential as a process of meditation. Sorry, but when we apply antidotes, for example, to the afflictions, and particularly when we look at our own mind and try to, as we say, find anger in the object, find it within our body, find it within the mind, and so forth, we come to know our mind better. Now, applying local antidotes helps us to know our mind better. Taking up ethical discipline is helping with avoiding encounters with objects that fuels our afflictions. Applying local antidotes is also helpful with guarding our ethics. And so, although I did describe it as kind of those steps that we take up gradually as stages of subduing the mind, each one of those stages, when practiced in a profound way, is helping increasing and developing and fortifying all the previous stages. And so in our daily life, as we go by year after year in our spiritual practice, all those different steps become better and better. And all of them, earlier steps will make latter steps become stronger, but also latter steps will also make sure that ability to practice better will be developed. Does it sound logical? I think that based upon our experience, we can probably see that. So that's one point that I wanted to look at. Then going back to this, daily shamatha meditation is important. And I think that, if I'm a little bit honest with my training within the FBMT Buddhist circle, I've trained with great teachers, but in the Gelugpa, great Tibetan teachers. In the Gelugpa tradition, there's not a habit or culture of a geshe or Rinpoche sitting with you and doing basic meditation, guided meditation. We're, I think, more used to it from the Western Sangha that we communicate with. I found encountered a few Tibetan geshes that from time to time led a meditation, but it's not, I think, within the traditional training that they get. In other traditions within Tibetan Buddhism, there's more emphasis on guided meditation. And so in the Kagyu tradition, which I'm also a little bit familiar with, there's such a strong emphasis on starting the meditation with a shamatha practice. And shamatha practice is mainly based on the breath or the body, in which you, first of all, make sure that your body is totally relaxed, not constricting your body, not feeling uncomfortable, right? Having a really relaxed posture. And then also spending some time in observing the breath, observing the mind itself. And as we do it daily, other meditations improve. We create space in the mind for developing a meditation process. So we do analytical meditation or stabilizing meditation. Just focusing on shamatha meditation to begin with daily is important. But also, I think that in general, when we look at attention, developing attention in our life, science shows that with training in attention, paying attention to the breath, paying attention to the mind, everything in our life, our ability to function better in our life, our ability to study, to process information, to deal with emotional response, emotion overload, all those other features become better if we train in attention. And developing training in attention is another term for training in concentration. And so we don't necessarily need to sit for half an hour or an hour to develop concentration. If you want to do that, that's wonderful. But as I said, we start small. And the advice that is given in Tsongkhapa's text, but also all across the Kagyu tradition, is to start with 1 minute of meditation, 2 minutes of meditation, 3 minutes, and to increase it gradually. And they say that if you start immediately with half an hour of meditation or an hour long meditation, you might, and you're not used to it, it is likely to develop into a process in which you do not enjoy your meditation. You develop aversion to meditation. They do not feel comfortable. You feel stressed about them. So next time that you see your meditation cushion, you're going to feel actually nauseous rather than feel happy about them. And it's something that happened to me in my first Buddhist course that I took. So I encountered Buddhism when I was in my mid-20s, and then I was traveling in India. Then I went back home, and I found out that a friend of mine was organizing a Buddhist retreat. It was led by Thupten Chodron, that lives in Shravasti Abbey in the US. So she came to Israel to lead, I think, a 10-day Buddhist meditation course. So I did that, and we had meditation sessions every morning. And it was starting the morning with an hour-long meditation from 6 to 7 o'clock in the morning. It was an absolute disaster, at least for me. It was such a torture. It's like I've never meditated before. And to start a meditation course with doing an hour-long meditation in the morning, and they were guided meditation, but still, I didn't know what to do. It was a torture, to the point where I was not looking forward for those morning meditations at all. So this is not like the positive reaction that we want to have for a meditation session. Did it happen to you also, by the way, or is it only me? Okay, Shela saying
Yes,
that.
I didn't. Yeah, me too. Yeah, and I could not stop my mind
Yeah.
at all, and hyper focused on stupid stuff. So yes, I totally agree.
And then feeling bad that it's not working, that kind of I'm a shit meditator, sorry, that I'm a bad meditator, that I cannot do it, and blah, 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 blah. And so, and so starting small, short meditation sessions, absolutely necessary, and then over time increasing it. So I think the daily meditation sessions, that's another good way to move forward. Daily shamatha meditation is important. And I said, not necessarily in the formal meditation sessions, also outside of that. Then meditating on the lamrim, which I think many of us do. Meditating on the lamrim, in that we meditate on appreciating our precious human rebirth, in appreciating our own mortality, with meditating on death and impermanence, meditating on what will occur to us in our next life, meditating on karma, meditating on all the attributes of samsara, seeing them as the nature of suffering, developing the wish to emerge from that, developing ethics and concentration and wisdom. So doing that, incorporating that into a meditation session. When we do it, you can also again do it while walking, while driving. You can do it while sitting on a bench for 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be a formal meditation session, but of course, if we do formal meditation sessions, it helps, gives a boost. Particularly if you do it, if we can do it in the morning as a way of setting our intention and motivation with renunciation, with bodhicitta, it's going to have a certain effect over the day, particularly if we do it day in and day out. And as we do it, we need to be gentle with ourselves and also to have a long-term perspective. This is important because I think that often, particularly at the beginning, we are not gentle with ourselves. Kind of we push too much. We have high expectations. Expectations that we know we should not get angry at all, that we should have no thoughts at all when we meditate, that we should be free of attachment, that we should be free of that. And when that doesn't happen, we think that we're incapable of doing that, that others are better practitioners than us. So being gentle with ourselves, starting small, not setting high expectations, but actually low expectation for us, I think it's crucial. If we become constantly disappointed of ourselves in our practice, we might decide at the end to leave it all together. And I might say it in the past, maybe even a few times, that over the years that I lived at Chinrezig Institute, I encountered so many people, not so many, a few people that were so enthused about Buddhism and so enthused about being able to attain the state of enlightenment within 6 months or a year of their engagement with Buddhism. And they forced themselves to, to give up everything in life, to give up on house and relationship and work and only do meditation and only do study. Most of them burnt out. Vast majority burnt out. So being gentle, being reasonable is crucial. Sometimes I think that it's about our personality, right? If we have a personality that is in which we see that cycle of getting enthused about something, doing it wholeheartedly, getting burnt out, taking a break, picking up something else, doing it full-heartedly, getting burnt out, it's an indication that we are not doing it right. So stop it. Stop it if you do it. Be gentle with yourself. I don't know if it's a really simplistic advice, but we really need to set low expectations and long-term perspectives. And for me, the long-term perspective is particularly relevant, for me growing up in Israel and looking at this horrible war now happening in the Middle East, Israel, Palestine, Jordan, and so forth. My meditation process cannot solve the situation. If I ask myself, what can I do in order to solve the situation? I cannot do anything. It's beyond my capacity. My long-term perspective is to get out of samsara and to become Buddha, so that in the future, not only I will not have to go through such suffering, but also I have better capacity to help others not go through this suffering. But to help others is also with long-term perspective. I will not be able to do it for them in this life. If I can, perfect. But to lead them through a succession of lifetimes in which they will be able to make their way out of samsara. And so I think that then also with the upcoming elections in the US, and it seems that there is this Armageddon sense that all of us feel, it's a make or break, the future of the USA, but also the future of the world is hanging in a balance. Climate change, all the other factors, wars and so forth, seems to be kind of now a viable reality and danger looking to the future. So what can we do about it? We freak out, right? We feel so uncomfortable. What can we do about it? Well, in a meditation session daily, to continue to work on love and compassion, bodhicitta and wisdom, because now we kind of, as individuals, we don't have a lot of power, very little power. We can affect the people around us. What we can do is attain enlightenment. In order to attain enlightenment, we need to make sure that in the next lifetime, we get born again as human beings, that we've created all the causes and conditions to meet with spiritual teachers, to meet the Dharma again. And so day-to-day practice focused on future lifetimes and beyond is giving us a long-term perspective. I think that as such is making it way more easier to deal with difficulties that we experience along the way. When our approach is long-term approach, it's easier to deal with failure, disappointments, obstacles along the way. If our approach is only short-term, wanting short-term results, when something goes out of whack, we lose sight. right? So long-term perspective is crucial. What was the last point? Let's see. Yeah, not having big expectations for a swift and radical change. So all of this I think also is crucial for subduing our mind thoroughly. And so I think that those are the points that I wanted to to continue to speak of, and I ran out of time, and so I am wondering if you have any quick questions or comments before we end this session.
I had just a quick one about shamatha. The first person I studied Dharma with said there was something about the breath that I became like, because they have you doing the counting thing. And I was getting so obsessed about that the breathing was getting deeper and deeper. And so someone said to me, you can do like a mantra, and that's the same thing. It's just holding that. Or he said, the statue of Buddha that I have on the altar. I mean, are those, because everybody sort of goes to the breath, but some of us, it's not necessarily an easy thing. Are there options or?
Oh, definitely option. So I think that our last session before this one, maybe it was from Tasmania. I can't remember. Maybe not. Anyway, so I was in Tasmania recently in Australia with a Kempo from Shabling Monastery, and he led those meditations, and he gave option. He said that you can do either shamatha, focusing on the breath, or you can do also mental repetitions, mental recitations. So we are different to each other. Things work differently for us. And so we can focus on mantras, and they're simple mantras. The 6-syllable mantra of Chenrezig, Om Mani Padme Hum, is not too long, but also Om Ahum, even combined with the breath, can be useful. But also Siddha Rinpoche said that rather than even reciting mantras, we can also recite things like, ultimately, everything is perfect. Repeating it, ultimately, everything is perfect. We are perfect, others are perfect, in a sense that ultimately, none of us are inherently damaged. So even that could be used for mental repetition. And so then also, over the years, when I attended Siddha Rinpoche's teachings on Mahamudra, we went through those exercises in which we did, for example, counting a round of 21 breaths. Actually, we started with a count of 7 breaths. Then we progressed to 21 breaths. Then 3 counts of 21. Then 7 counts of 21. And so until the point in which we actually left the count and just focused on the breath. And so, counting is it's not mandatory. And also, this number is not a fixed number. Do whatever works for you. And if counting doesn't work for you at all, if you become too obsessed about it, also that's okay. Do whatever works for you. It's just an aid, something that can help us in a meditation. But if it becomes disruptive, let's do something else. So, all right. Someone is trying to call me in Messenger. I'm just going to close Messenger. That's it. All right. So I think that it's time to finish up for today. We have a teaching session happening soon with Siddha Rinpoche, and I have breakfast lined up. So thank you very much for coming along again. And to be honest, I really enjoyed those sessions. And so I've been thinking the last few days and weeks that I should look at my schedule and try to work out something, another series with Dundrupla. And so I'll try to make that happen. I benefit from that because you give me the opportunity to think of these points, and I really like kind of having those discussions with you. So thank you very much for coming along and not leaving me completely in the dark. And good luck for us all. Good luck for you in the USA, and good luck for us all in the world. And yeah, I know that everyone here is kind of rooting for you.
Thank you, Venerable. This was one of the best classes we've had, and this session was the best of all of the sessions. I'm so glad you took the time to take the extra time to take a week with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you. And
Thank
so
you,
let's
Venerable.
finish up. Thank you, Kimberly. Let's finish up with dedicating all the merit that we have accumulated together over this series of talks, and we can begin with first of all dedicating it for just having a more reasonable political system, which now seems to be completely breaking apart, which is putting people's life and other living beings' life in danger, in danger in the world that we live in. And so may we be able to do whatever is possible to affect our surrounding with a kind heart and also with wisdom, so that in our locality we'll be able to make some change that will accumulate in the future to a certain energy that will matter. We can recognize that currently we are powerless, we have very little control, but in the future, may we be able to have better wisdom. May we be enlightened. May we have insight into different levels of reality to be able to affect people in a positive way. And so, with that in mind, we will dedicate the merit. Just open the file. Sorry, I thought I did open it. Okay, I'll open the file of dedications. May the Supreme Jewel Bodhicitta that is not arisen arise and grow, and may that which is arisen not diminish but increase more and more. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of the Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. And a couple of prayers for the long life of His Holiness Dalai Lama and success in all of his endeavors. The wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world. To the incomparably kind Tenzin Gyatso, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. Sever of the snowland teachings and transmigrated beings, who makes extremely clear the path that is unification of emptiness and compassion. To the lotus holder Tenzin Gyatso, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. And lastly, we can also make prayers for the swift return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche. May he return to us quickly and continue to lead us. And also, of course, dedicating it for the welfare of everyone that is involved with Thupten Nobbling, that is helping us create this platform of wonderful teachings that we share with each other. So thank you very much. Shela is saying, we want to hear your suggestions for future classes. So we have here a link.
A link Venerable Dundrup asked me to share. So go and say, please, can we have Venerable Kartsön?
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, cool. Yeah, and actually, that's a wonderful idea. If you also have any idea of things that you would like to do, you can put your suggestions forward, and I can think about it, see if I'm capable of doing anything. All right, cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have
I
a
hope to
wonderful
see
time
you
in
again.
India. Watch out for the monkeys.
Enjoy your breakfast.
Thanks,
safe.
Venerable. Good
Take
night,
care.
everyone.
Night, everyone.